This story left such an impression on me that it served as an inspiration for me to move forward in my work, and actually was the inspiration for me to write my book, Finding Forgiveness. And it really illustrates the power of forgiveness from someone who appeared to be quite ordinary, and in fact turned out to be quite extraordinary. And so after finding out about Iran's story, I did give that talk on forgiveness and its impact on international affairs. And I think people were quite stunned. But that's what led me into the work that I'm doing today. And so I just want to share a little bit about what I'm actually doing today. And most recently, what I've been involved with is called the Foundation of Reconciliation. And they are developing what is being called Schools for Forgiveness and Reconciliation. And this is a nonprofit organization which started in 2003. And the purpose of what it addresses are conflicts now focused in South America, but this is going to be expanding, where there have been patterns of violence. And so they go in and they help people come together to form these schools of forgiveness and reconciliation and teach these skills. And what they believe is that forgiveness and reconciliation are special and political virtues which are indispensable if you want to sustain peace. And so the foundation has been developing some theories and methodology of forgiveness and reconciliation to help victims and offenders overcome their painful memories and their negative narratives by fostering forgiveness and reconciliation and teaching skills that will sustain peace building. And a lot of this work is done through the schools of forgiveness and reconciliation. And what these schools actually are, they're not buildings like we think of schools. There are people who get trained in this work, and they go back to their villages. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be going down to Peru next week, and I'm going to be working with some of these people. They could be the coastal dwellers, they could be the indigenous people out in the country, or the peasants. And when you get 10 to 20 people together with what they call an amateur, a facilitator, then you have a school of forgiveness and reconciliation. And these people go through an 80-hour process with 10 modules, 7 in forgiveness and a few more in reconciliation. And it's a wonderful group process that they do. And the first module, for example, is people are asked the question, how do you experience violence? How do you express violence? And what is the effects of violent behavior on you? And so right away they're already talking about, we all have a piece to play in here. We've all been violent. We need to really look at that. Now, I won't go through what the 10 modules are, but what I will say is that, interestingly enough, what we have found is that when we work with groups, the process is very similar to the way we work with individuals. And I know many people in the workshop yesterday were asking, how do we do it? How do we do it? Well, I'm going to just quickly tell you what the steps are. We've done a lot of research on this. And there are some predictable steps that people go through. It's not a totally linear process by any means, but these are the things that we found out. And so when I take people through a forgiveness process to give them skills, the first step is being clear. What do we mean by forgiveness? And for those of you that were at the workshop yesterday, you could tell there have been many misperceptions. And we need to clear that up, because those misperceptions can block people from wanting to move forward. Then the second step is telling your story. And you need to tell it in a safe environment, because we want you to start getting in touch with the feelings. Because the third step is working through the anger and opening your heart. The fourth step is working with your guilt. And then you'll finally get to the fifth step. And it's really beginning to stop asking the question, why me? And start asking the question, why them? What has happened in their lives that have created so much pain that is affecting their behavior right now? And when you're able to do that, you're able to begin to walk in someone else's shoes. You're able to grow in compassion. And at that point, you begin to say, the buck stops here. I'm willing to absorb my pain. I'm willing to mourn my losses. And I think that's the pivotal point right there. And when you're willing to do that hard work, you get to the point that Iran Lore got to when she said, "Dear God, in the heart, my heart of hearts, I want to be able to forgive." And I always find that what happens is people are given that extra gift. Call it grace, call it whatever you want, but it's that power that makes your heart leap over the fence. I went through that fast, and I know people have been asking me about it. I have some materials for those who really want to delve deeper into this process and learn how to forgive outside in the hall. There's Finding Forgiveness, and then there's the journal and the CD that can help you if you want to really learn how to forgive. So the Schools for Forgiveness and Reconciliation are primarily in South America, but I'm also involved in doing some work in Africa. And I've been working in Liberia for a couple of years, developing another type of forgiveness, healing, and training program. And I just found out just a day before I came here that I'm going to be going to Nigeria, doing the same kind of work and helping to train people in forgiveness and reconciliation. And I've got to tell you, my motivation hasn't changed one bit since I started this journey 30 years ago. And I think the reason is because I have very deep spiritual beliefs. And I know in my heart of hearts that we all have a purpose in life. And that purpose is to learn how to love and forgive. And so as your own journey begins on the forgiveness trail, I want to share one last thought with you. I was reading a wonderful book by a doctor named John Lerma. The book is called Into the Light. And what this book is about, John Lerma, he worked in the hospice unit at Houston Medical Center. And he writes about ordinary people who are maybe having just 1 week left to live, their pre-death experiences, as he calls them. And Dr. Lerma's stories include heartfelt accounts of what people describe as God's love. And these accounts have come from a murderer, a drug addict, a 9-year-old boy, an atheist, a Nazi. I think you're getting the idea. These are not necessarily the most spiritual people, but they all come back with the same message. And what they basically say is they talk in depth about the importance for self-love and self-forgiveness, and to have loving relationships while you're here on earth. They also bring home the message that what keeps us from experiencing this unconditional love is the unhealed guilt that we carry in ourselves. The more we can heal our guilt and forgive, the more peacefully our lives will end. They also remind us that we are here to learn how to love unconditionally and to forgive, and that the unconditional love and the random acts of kindness raise the level of humanity and spiritual growth for our planet and the universe. So, For those of you who have the courage to follow it, forgiveness reminds us how to live in love in a world filled with guilt and fear. Greg Braden, in his book Walking Between the Worlds, eloquently describes the opportunities that forgiveness brings to us. And he says this: without exception, each event, every relationship, every love, and every betrayal that you have ever experienced has provided you with key emotions and feelings leading to your mastery. How you perceive these emotions and feelings, how you define them in your life, is your way of teaching and training yourself, reminding yourself of the promise of forgiveness. We are the ones who determine how much anger and hatred we will experience in our lives, as well as how much forgiveness and compassion we will extend to others. We have been given the opportunities to hate and the wisdom to transcend that hate. And think of the personal power you must have to move beyond old choices and to respond to a place of spiritual wisdom. Our pain and suffering provides us with the chance to learn how to forgive and to know our truest, most beautiful nature. And so, I leave you with this thought: tear down the walls that keep you from loving yourself and others. Forgive yourself now instead of tomorrow, so you can get the opportunity to experience twice as much love and joy in your life while here on earth. And if what Dr. Lerma says is true, then at the end of our days, we will have peace, and we will know in our heart of hearts that our lives were lived well. Thank you so much for this honor. I just want to really thank this audience today. I have never felt so much warmth and love. You're really beautiful. Thank you.